And I'll share my screen first. So, hello everyone. Welcome to our bi-weekly CHAOSS Asia community meeting. And today, the first agenda is to welcome Cooper to join this meeting and share the project around, I think it's open heart and minds project. And I see you have. Do you need to share your screen, Cooper?
Yeah, sure, I can do that. I'll just get some slides up.
Okay.
Did I post this? Did I drop the slides in the chat? I think I did. Oh, I put them in the working group. Which is it? Oh, so you're Yaya? Is that right?
Yeah. I'm Yaya. Yeah. I sorry. I should have a introduction about myself first.
Just your
Well,
name
currently
says Chaos Community.
yeah. Um. Currently beyond the community, being a member of the CHAOSS community, I'm also working for N Group OSPO, which is I'm based in Hangzhou, China right now, and so I see the work you are working on is about try to evaluate the value of contribution in open source, which is actually what for a very long time we've also trying to explore on this, and to in some way quantify the contribution of developers and we can also monetize or incentive them or reward them based on their quantified results. That is also what we wish to push forward. So I'm really interested in and happy to see you are also working on this.
Yeah, very cool. Yeah, I was very interested in what you posted, and I want to at some point would love to learn more and dive into how the metrics are actually calculated. I see Manu has arrived as well. Hello.
Oh yeah.
Hello.
Hi Mano.
Hi.
We're now a meeting of three.
Yes. So
Progress.
for some context introduction, Cooper is going to have introduction of his work on the OMH and the Wisdom project. And
Yeah, so I'll just share screen again.
yes.
Okay, so this is a lightning talk from an open science conference that I gave a few months ago. And I opened with this slide because my background is in neuroscience. I did a PhD. During that process, I realized that the scholarly publishing system is incredibly inefficient and has misaligned incentives. And the problem is that we're all trapped by this system. We're all in what's called a collective action problem. We're incentivized to keep on using these journals, even though there are much better ways that we could be doing things. And so that's the problem that I've been thinking about and trying to solve for the last, 8 years or so. And I'm really inspired by Buckminster Fuller and the idea that if we're going to change a system, we need to really rebuild it from the ground up. We can't try and tap at the edges. We need to build a new model that makes the old model obsolete. And so this is the problem that I've been thinking about for a long time now. The basic premise I have is that what if we could create some kind of a system that could take any contribution to a community and calculate its relative value? Because if we could do that, then we could figure out the relative amount of value that people create, and then we could reward them directly, like you were mentioning, Yaya, about incentivizing and rewarding people. And I put here ... and incentivize engagement, because in my years of learning in the open science space, one of the key learnings I realized is that we have all the technology that we already need, but the problem is no one's actually using it. And specifically when it comes to peer reviewing or evaluating contributions, there's no incentive for people to actually provide high quality evaluations. And so this is the key problem, I think. We need to incentivize people to provide high quality evaluations. But this then creates a problem, because if you're going to reward people or you're going to evaluate the evaluation, you might call this meta reviews, then those meta reviews might also be of variable quality. And so somebody needs to review the meta reviews, and you end up with this problem of infinite recursion where it's kind of totaled all the way down. So what I'm going to present is a really simple model that breaks down the evaluation process into its simplest parts, and I think takes a step towards solving this problem while being experimentally controlled, flexible to basically any type of contribution, and really, really simple so that everyone in the community can engage with the process. And so this is the core mechanism. We just use pairwise comparisons, where we give someone two contributions and ask them to tell us which is more X, where X is some dimension of interest. And so in this community, for example, we might be talking about code commits versus, say, a document that somebody's written. And we ask them the person to tell us which is more valuable, or which they're more grateful for, whatever the dimension is we're interested in. And what we want to do is incentivize these reviews themselves. And so we do that through what we're calling a meta review process. So here it's the same interface with the pairwise comparison, but instead of comparing two contributions, we're asking somebody to compare a regular contribution, like a code commit, to some number of these reviews themselves. So in this example, in the orange box, you can see I'm asking somebody to consider what is the value of 100 of these pairwise comparisons, and now compare that to the piece of code or the document that somebody wrote, whatever it is. And what we can do is treat these comparisons as like a baseline unit of value to the community, because they're relatively standard, they're relatively uniform. And so we can just give them a standard unit of value. And what we can do then with this data that we collect is use that to automatically score every single contribution. And literally all we need is these two really simple processes to do this. So I'll show you some data on how we do that. First, I just want to give a background. We developed this system by prototyping, by hosting festivals. As I said, my background was in academia, but I was developing a model like this, and I felt like it was actually too constrained to iterate rapidly and test the ideas in academia. So I left for a couple of years. We started hosting these gift-based festivals, and then using prototyping through this process. And so we validated the model for the context of festivals. And then I took that data to this open science conference in Australia called AMOS, and I presented the data and the model, and then prompted a new prototype where we used the same model, but applied it to the open science conference. And so that's the data I'm going to show you. And so the first stage in the process is to basically record contributions. This can be literally up to the community, whatever they find valuable or think is worthy of recognition. So we asked the community to nominate contributions, and we received a range of contributions, everything from talks that people gave, administration that people did, the registration fees that people paid, and really abstract kind of soft skills like balancing attendance at discussion groups. Basically, this system can allow the community to nominate things that would normally be hidden and go like fall by the wayside. We also ask people to nominate dimensions, and this is a key factor that the model allows the community to define their own dimensions, their own values, what they care about. And for this community, for this pilot study, we selected from the community response, we selected gratitude, generosity, inclusivity, transparency, integrity, and creativity. And so then from that sample, we selected a subsample of representative contributions. We selected 24, and we put them into this randomized control design where basically every contribution is compared to every other contribution twice. And then we just give people these pairwise comparisons. So we use spreadsheets for this prototype. You can see down the bottom that we're just asking somebody to compare two contributions. So in this case, compare this lightning talk to this hackathon that somebody hosted. And you do that on each of these dimensions. So we've got generosity, they selected the talk, inclusivity, transparency, integrity, creativity, and so on. And so those are the regular reviews. We fully balance the design so that we can control for bias. We control for exposure to the information as well, so that all contributions get seen the same number of times. And then we move into the meta review phase. So here we now add in these review contributions themselves. So you can see I've added in 100 pairwise comparisons, 400 pairwise comparisons. We had a range that we included. And then again, we fully balance the design, and then we offer these pairs. So now someone is comparing, in this example, this lightning talk against 100 of these pairwise comparisons. And basically, once you've collected this data set, this then allows you to calculate the score for every single contribution automatically. And so this is that data set here. What you can see is the blue dot is basically the number of votes that the review contributions received. And on the y-axis is the batch size of that review. So because we give one point to each review, in say this one here, there was a review contribution that was 2,000 reviews. That gets a score of 2,000, and you can see that it scored around 55. I don't know if you can see my cursor, but yeah, it's got around 55 votes. And so basically the blue dot are the number of votes that the review contributions received. We use that as a baseline. So we fit this function, which is the blue line, and then use that to interpolate a score for all the regular contributions. So those are the black dots. And what that gives us then is a score on any dimension that we want to use this process for. And so what I'm showing in this next plot is a radar plot, which shows all of the dimensions that we measured, gratitude, generosity, and so on. And each line, each colored line is one of these contributions and the score that it received on each dimension. So you can see that, say, this red line was scored quite highly in gratitude, but not so highly on creativity or inclusivity. And so this then is a rich template of the qualities of each contribution that can then be filtered in any kind of interesting ways. And this is where, as like a data scientist, this is where it gets exciting, because you can then basically just apply an algorithm to filter the data to show you gratitude per contributor, gratitude per contribution. You can look at contributor profiles, see the ways that people have contributed. And so, yeah, you can split the data up in any way that you're interested in. And of course, because this is an open system, the idea is that we can check the integrity of the data that we're collecting. And so this simple plot here is just a proof of concept that we can have a reputation profile for reviewers that is showing their reliability in completing this task. And yeah, so this was just a pilot test. We did this for 24 contributions, but then we took that data and then I extrapolated that to the rest of the contributions that we had on record. And so I calculated a gratitude per minute for the different types of categories that we measured, and also a gratitude per dollar for the different types of financial contributions, and just used those as a kind of estimate to extrapolate values for all of the contributions. And so this giant table that you can see is a snapshot of the 166 contributions that we had on record, everything from the scheduled activities to the planning and administration to the fees and registration fees that people paid, the costs of running the conference, literally anything that we could think of. And also critically, including the contributions to this pilot test as well, because we also want to recognize this process of valuing contributions. And what that gives us then is a complete picture of all of the contributions, along with the gratitude that people felt for them. And you can then do some really interesting analyses. So on the right, I'm just showing that this is a window into starting to analyze what people think about things and decide if things were good or bad decisions. So for example, we can see that the gratitude for the work that one of the administration staff members completed was larger than the cost for hiring that person. So that might suggest that was a good decision to hire them. Alternatively, we have less gratitude for the ECR breakfast that was hosted compared to the money that went into it. So that might be suggesting that maybe it wasn't a good investment, and maybe next year they should put that money in towards something else. And so this then is a window into the kinds of automated reward mechanism we talked about earlier, where basically you can tally up the total gratitude or value that somebody has created and then automatically reward them if there's money available. And so what we can see here is that one person, actually the president of this organization, put in way, way, way more work than anyone else. And so a really positive thing is that this can start to bring to light these contributions, most of which people would not even have heard of. Like they wouldn't have even known that most of this stuff happened in the background. And by bringing it to light, we can then start to decentralize it. So in future conferences, hopefully, we'll be able to spread out these contributions so that more people can start to take on some of these, like, lower level tasks that really the president didn't need to be doing, and could farm out to somebody else. And because we've tagged the data, we can also then allocate money automatically to particular projects. So this is just a proof of concept that if somebody really likes this project, for example, which we're calling Wisdom at this point, then they could drop a pool of money into this system, and it could be automatically distributed based on the value that people have created, which then incentivizes them to keep on doing more work in this project. So that is the sort of snapshot for how we used it at AMOS. We've now done this with, I think, 5 or 6 different communities spanning science, tech, art, basically showing that this same system can apply to any community with any type of contribution. And the key thing is that because they're all using this standard unit of value, which is pegged to the pairwise comparison process, it means that different communities can adopt the same system. We can all grow and learn together. We can share the resources that we develop. And if we find the contributions of other communities valuable, we now have a pathway with which we can recognize value and we can exchange value automatically. So here I'm just showing as a proof of concept, all of the communities we've prototyped with so far have used gratitude, but you could also use the word value, whatever it works for different communities. And because we now have this mechanism, this sort of line of exchange, if one community has money and another community has skills, then they could start to automatically exchange that value. I don't know what's happening with my screen. That's cool. But yeah, they could automatically exchange value along that line of gratitude or value or whatever dimension they have in common. Yeah, and so this is the thank you slide to all the communities that we've prototyped with. So here you can see there's an open science community, a decentralized community. We've also prototyped with our own community, which is hosting the diverse art gatherings. And yeah, that's pretty much where we're at. Actually, no, where we're at is now building an MVP. And we've got a really solid international team. We've got really strong on back end, but unfortunately still a bit weak on front end. So really, really seeking front end developers, especially React and Next.js, would be amazing because we have some really great conferences coming up in June and really want to have that ready so that we can start handing this out to communities like CHAOSS. The end.
Thank you, Cooper. So Manu, do you have any thoughts or comment on this?
No, that sounds really like amazing. I don't have any more questions.
Okay. So if I catch that correct, Cooper, by front end, you because what I was thinking is you are looking for some front end communities to continue prototype this mechanism, but actually what you are looking for is front end developers to visualize the contribution in the community. And we are looking for
right.
And there are some
I feel like
great conferences. Sorry. So you are looking for some other. There are some big conferences that will going to happen, and you will use that venue to continue the experiment or to push the mechanism to have more practice.
Yeah, so I feel like we've learned all that we can learn from prototyping, and the model's evolved really beautifully through that process. We've just finished, I think, validated the final part of the model that we really needed to prototype, and so the next stage is to make it scalable because the prototype's very limited. It's just a spreadsheet. We can only really, it's just not very user friendly, and so we've designed and started building an app which will make it really easy because it'll just be A versus B and people can just tap their way through. And once we've got that, then that can be made available to different communities. Any community would be able to make their own instance, which basically would allow them to populate it with their own contributions and then autonomously value those contributions. And yeah, so some of the conferences coming up, there's in Berlin, there's like the system has been designed in a decentralized way. So I'm also in contact with like the decentralized communities. And so there's a DeFi Berlin conference or like blockchain week in early June. And then I've also applied to Meta Science, which is the world's largest meta science conference happening in London at the end of June. And yeah, I'm really excited about launching there because that's basically the world's foremost people that like looping in those researchers who I believe will be interested in this. And we've got like everyone have been pretty interested in this as well. So that's the next stage, make it scalable, make it available to everybody, and then we can collect bulk data and start really doing some interesting science on this.
Yeah, that is actually the question I originally want to ask is how to make this mechanism scalable and to really launching this. So if I understand this correctly, the basic mechanism is based on the peer review, but it doesn't require such it doesn't need to. So we already have this valuation mechanism, and we don't need to run all that again. So if we want to launch this model in a new community, how much effort that community need to put? From my understanding, you still need to collect data, but how does that work?
Yeah, so like the way we've designed it is that it's a collaborative process for the community to enter contributions and then review the contributions. So the idea is like we can decentralize that process as much as possible and leave it up to everybody in the community to share that labor. So there is work involved in nominating the contributions, like identifying what's not been nominated, then typing in, a description. And then there's also work involved in doing the valuation, so doing these pairwise comparisons. But because everybody can participate in that, it's made in a really simple, inclusive way. It means that the labor can be shared. So it's not on the key organizers to do all of the work and add to their workload. It means that everyone can be involved in that.
So yeah, yes, you did mention there is an automated system so that the community members can enter their contribution, their work. So hi Gagan, so we were just discussing the Cooper's research about how to evaluate the value of the value of open source contributions or even contributions of any open community, from my understanding. And yeah, I was just asking. So any members could encounter their contribution, and he can even encounter the contribution representing others. And is that correct? So how do you validate? Like he can, because I'm not saying that because if we really involve some monetizing, some money work in this, things could go bad. Some behaviors could go bad. How do you validate that he didn't encounter something that he didn't do?
Yes, yeah, you're 100% right. Like the number one rule is that if you create a system, it will be gamed.
Yes.
What we have here, I believe, is the first step towards aligning incentives throughout the community. And because everything can be recognized as a contribution, so this system has the capacity to handle anything, including interactions with the system. And so let's say somebody does try to cheat the system, and let's say they nominate something that they did, but they didn't actually do it, for example. Well, that nomination is a contribution, or it could be a contribution within the system. And so in some future version of the system, in version 2, if it's been detected that somebody has tried to cheat the system, then those interactions that they've had could also be entered into the system, and you could find a negative value, for example, that would be a punishment basically for the value that the person has extracted from the community. Because let's say somebody tries to cheat the system, and then eventually they get caught. Well, somebody needed to catch the person, and then they needed to spend time figuring out, analyzing the data and figuring out what to do about it. And then the community had to figure out a new process to prevent that in the future. And then they had to figure out what to do about it. All of that is work, and all of that can be tracked, and all of that can be valued. And so you could actually end up with like a bill that you hand the person and say, well, this is the cost that you've created by your actions. And you don't get to play with us until you fix that cost, until you apologize and you make amends, and then you add more value than you've subtracted, for example. Or the community might just decide to kick them out. It's up to the community how they use it. But that's one way in which you could disincentivize that kind of gaming. And obviously, it's not always going to be that clear cut. There's always going to be cases where it's vague, and it's unclear if somebody was actually cheating or if they just didn't understand or whatever it might be. But what this system gives you is data. And once you have the data, then you can start to figure out how to deal with those situations.
Yeah, and also talking about data, I totally agree that every contribution in open source should be recognized, and some of the contribution that can't be tracked by pure data, because that is actually the work I share the leaderboard I shared in the Slack with you. That is what we've done, but we only base the work with the pure data that we can gain from the GitHub developers behaviors on GitHub, like commit, like comment in issues, and also open pull request, and like doing pull request reviews. We track all those data, and we have a network collaboration-based algorithm to calculate their contribution completely. That is completely automated evaluation, purely based data, but we didn't collect like if you organize, you are doing some community supportive work, like you are giving a talk, broadcasting your community on some conference, and you are organizing some event. Those kind of activities we can never. It's just very hard to track those and to incorporate them in our evaluation system. But yeah, so I think the question I have, and this is an open question, is from my point of view, it's always hard to track the contributions. And of what I understanding of your work is, you have based on your research, you have a solid evaluation framework, and to value different types of contributions. So if we have this automated system, and I encounter my contribution, and I supplement, I enter some like information. I provide some information, and you can automatically map my contribution in some of into your system, and to calculate the value of my contribution. Yeah, I just want to see how that really works, and I just so if there is the app you mentioned is published, I just can't wait to experience on that.
Yay. Well, I'm in the same boat. I can't wait to see how it works as well. And I also don't have all the answers. Like, what we have is a really neat model that I think could be the beginning of a kind of process. But it's going to be up to communities like this and like ours and like all of the other communities that are interested in this kind of thing to figure out how to use this. And I don't think it's going to be a one solution fits all. I think different communities will develop different processes and they'll figure out different solutions for their particular use case. Because, as you mentioned, you've got situations where presenting at conferences and these other types of contributions aren't being recognized, and they really should be recognized, but that's not relevant to every community. And so the particular use case will define the way the system gets evolved for that community. But the cool thing is that as long as every community is adopting the same core mechanism, then at some point you can trace back to the idea that every unit in this system is equivalent to one of these pairwise comparisons. And so that means that two communities that are using it, if they agree, if they think that their visions and their missions are sufficiently aligned, then they can still exchange value potentially, and they can trade contributions based on the metrics that they produce if they agree that they're of comparable quality and that sort of thing. But yeah, it's really an open question how this actually evolves, and I'm also excited to see how it goes.
Yeah, I can share a little bit about a mechanism we've already launching, and we want to see how this will help with growing the community. So I shared in the chat is the paper we published based on such program. And let me share my screen. Oh. So and we have such leaderboard. Oh, this is if you type in any community like VS Code, which is a huge community, a huge project. Oh, okay, it doesn't work. So basically we collect all the behavior logs on GitHub, and by developers, they are coordinating in different projects. They are coordinating issues and pull requests and other collaboration units in different communities, and they connect projects together. They connect organizations on GitHub together. So we build a network model, and we want to. The first is we want to calculate the value of these nodes connected by developers, and the collaboration units. So that is a heterogeneous network. I may pronounce it incorrectly. So the first of all is we want to evaluate the value of the open source project compared to other projects based on such network model, and then we calculate the contributions of different developers in these open source projects. So this is the global, we call this search evaluation system OpenRank. And this is the global OpenRank is to calculate the influence or the value of the open source projects in a domain perspective, a whole domain perspective. So there is a lot of parameters incorporated. And also we then also this is written in Chinese, and we don't have a English number currently, but the result is we turn out to have such community leaderboard. So it should looks like. Okay, it shouldn't look like this. Yes, actually, it looked like this, and this is a leaderboard of Alibaba, which is a tech giant in China. So it also owns a lot of open source projects, or to say it initiated a lot of projects. So we help them to have such a leaderboard for several open source projects. And we have a like a the companies also they have a fundamental like they have some funding to support these projects, and this is a monthly updated leaderboard, and we will incentivize the community. We try to incentivize the community developers, but the company they have concerns, they don't if we could, because it's actually numbers we can like reward money to monetize the system based on this value, but we don't do that but it's a bit aggressive. So so this is you can take this as a system, and you can the numbers will accumulate, and developers they can have gifts on different levels based on the numbers they accumulated. That is a mechanism we that run for a couple of months, but communities they also have concerns if such mechanism, once you initiate it, it's hard to stop, because if you don't have it, it could be okay, but once you have this mechanism and someday you stop it, that could cause negative effect to the community. And this is just this is some like also sorry, it's like a social experiment we program we've tried.
Yeah, very cool. I'm curious, like, did you hear feedback from the developers themselves about whether they thought the scores were fair or?
Yes, we interviewed I think it's the sample is 20. First of all, we ask the developer maintainers because most of them are the company's employers. Because the maintainers they are more familiar with at least the activities happens on GitHub. We ask them if they think the rank and the value is fair, and then we invited some community developers and to see if they think it's fair. And for most of time, they don't have a clear, they don't have a clear like a benchmark for this number, but they have a big value about maybe he contributes more than me and he ranked higher than me. So from the ranking perspective, it's fair. We ask them to there is a Likert scale a survey from 1 to 5. We ask them to point this about the fairness of this result, and the result get pretty high. And also we ask them if they think such rewarding system is helpful, or if this can really incentivize them. So for this perspective, we got different answers, and surprisingly, some of them think they don't need like contribute to open source. If that can help with them with a clear career path, that's more helpful than having a small number of money or some gifts that might be not so useful for them. But if the reward they can receive is higher than their main career, it achieves a certain amount of amount of money that they can really relies on contributes to open source, that would be, and at that point, they would think it's a great thing to have.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like the shift we need to get to where open source contributors can earn a revenue just for their contributions, and then they can start to
Yes.
move towards open source and leave their private jobs.
Yes.
Yeah, that's really cool. Like, I'm really excited to see this system. I've seen another one called SourceCred. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it, but it's also using a graph node. So it sounds like it might have a similar sort of mechanism to what you've got there. But yeah, like I guess what I'm interested in is seeing like these different systems and mechanisms complement one another, because um, if they add value, if they're useful, then they should also be, like, say with our system, they could also be recognized as a contribution. So all of the labor that's gone into creating that algorithm, all of the data that's gone into it, all of the reviews and everything, those are also contributions. So those could also be given a value. And if the community is finding it useful, then those two systems could play well together. Like, they could actually recognize one another. And I think that's when things get really exciting, when we can like connect all of these different projects that are doing similar sorts of things, and start pooling our resources. And yeah, I feel like some systemic change could come.
Yes. Yes. Exactly. Systematic changing. So thank you, Cooper, for this, for your sharing today. That's very exciting. I think your work is really amazing. And I think we had great discussions today. And actually, we only have 2 minutes left for this meeting. So on the agenda, actually, we don't have a lot. There is several reminders for conference CFPs. So if you are interested in some of the conference, like the Community Overcode is the renamed ApacheCon Asia that happens in Beijing this year. If you are interested in this conference, they also have travel assistance, and the CFP will not open until the middle April. So you can submit a proposal on this. And there is a survey. If you are interested, you can participate in this. So for Gagan and Manu, do you have other topics you would like to raise on this meeting?
No, nothing from my side.
Okay, cool. So we are out of time, and I think that's all for today's meeting. And thank you everyone to join our CHAOSS Asia working group and join this discussion. So I think all for today. And also thank again for Cooper for your work.
Well, thank
So
you for
bye
hosting,
bye.
and yeah, great to meet you. Bye bye.
Bye bye. Have a nice day.